Man, there's a lot going on in the world right now. So many people take comfort in the stability of the familiar, and I don't blame them. But what if I told you you could have a device conjured with pure electronics alchemy?
錬成陣を書く道具は持っているか？
いらないよ、そんなもん。
Living in the realm of equal and opposite exchange, something familiar, something unchanged, and yet much different than what you may have known. This is the iPhone SE, and clearly I'm a wizard. So I'm going to deconstruct this enchanting bit of alchemy and see what makes this third generation edition special in 2022. Let's go! This isn't your full metal alchemy. But yes, it is damn strong. The same glass that Apple used for the back of the iPhone 13 series has been incorporated into this third generation iPhone SE. And while that level of durability is actually a very, very good thing for this model, the strongest component featured here is the same A15 Bionic chip that you're getting in the iPhone 13. And that enables so much on this phone that despite its diminutive size and its seemingly throwback looks, it's more powerful than many of its larger, snazzier big brothers and sisters, with its 16-core neural engine and image signal processing, which enable experiences you couldn't get in those older devices. And there's that battery life. But yeah, let's get into life a bit and talk about my week with the phone. I've had some interesting experiences, some by accident, which were quite illuminating. I don't generally begin with the cameras, but this anecdotal fashion show photo test proved very telling. As a result, I ran a test on my IG between two sets of photos taken when I went to a fashion show for the Movement LA during LA Fashion Week. Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't make such an apples to oranges comparison, but that night I had two phones on me and decided to see what was what. I walked into the show with the S22 Ultra and this iPhone SE and thought, what the heck? I'll take photos with both phones and see how they turn out. Now, to be clear, you're getting more tools with the $1,200 phone, like 4 cameras, which include a 3x and 10x optical zoom. The iPhone SE has only 3x digital zoom. No comparison there, but all things being equal, meaning I took photos at 1x with both cameras operating at 12 megapixels. Samsung's has a 108 megapixel mode for its main sensor. The results were interesting. More people in my impromptu poll chose the $429 phone's photos over the $1,200 phone's photos. And this is something we'll come back to later in this review. The iPhone SE's photos generally coming out looking a bit more natural than some competing devices I tested against. In this case, the comment I received most was that the iPhone's images appeared more vibrant. You can go over to my IG and check that out for yourself to see what those look like with your own eyes. But man, did that night of unplanned photo and video capture burn through some battery. The beautiful thing though, the phone had been off the charger since 11 a.m. and though it was only 3 hours and 21 minutes of screen on time, it took me 12 and a half hours to get to 4%. That's with 34 minutes of that photo and video taking I was doing at the fashion show, 4 hours streaming Apple Music, almost 2 hours of Google Maps navigation while playing music, and all of the other tasks I'd used the phone for that day. The phone should easily get you through a work day or longer, depending on how you use it. And if you do decide to watch some video, I streamed Netflix for a half hour over 5G with the phone at around 90% brightness and saw a 5% battery loss, with the phone at 100% when I began. The good news in all of this is that even if you do burn through more battery than you'd like in the middle of your day, the phone supports fast charging. So with around 30 minutes charging from my PD charger, I'd gassed up 50%. And on one occasion, when my phone was near dead, I placed it on my Nomad wireless charger. It had been on approximately an hour while I was shaving and showering, getting ready for something I don't recall what, but I was surprised to see it already at 35%. It doesn't support any faster charging than the last generation or MagSafe charging. It's still set at 7.5 watts wireless charging. Wired charging, though, will support a 20 watt or higher charger. I plugged my phone up to my Atom PD charger and used the Mr. Battery app to monitor charging, and in 3.5 minutes, it went from 40 to 51%, showing a peak flow of 17 watts with the cable I had been using. I wanted to account for cable quality, so I used the Apple supplied cable in the box. Remember, they don't include the charging bricks any longer or earbuds. Using the phone day to day was an exercise in muscle memory, as I'm used to swiping down from the top with my iPhone 13 Pro Max, but I reacclimated to Touch ID fairly quickly and was off to the races. The phone is definitely bright enough for outdoors use, even though it clocks in at 625 nits of brightness. And watching content on it was bright and vibrant with speakers which were sufficient enough for most tasks. One interesting thing I found while holding the phone listening to music or other content is that there felt like there was some haptic feedback with the bass response, or just the positioning of the speakers inside the body of the phone, which produced a bit of sensory rumble that was enjoyable. This year, the phone is more expensive than the previous gen iPhone SE, but that $30 difference is likely due to the addition of 5G via Qualcomm. You're going to get mid-band and low-band support with no millimeter wave, but that's not a bad thing. Millimeter wave is nowhere near as widely deployed, and Apple really does work with carriers to get every drop of signal out of these devices. So with 3G sunsetting or already shut down on some carriers, this device is a smart choice for those not wanting to pay hundreds more to update and future-proof their smartphone use. And though this phone, like its predecessor, is based on the iPhone 8, your future-proofing is further bolstered by it launching with iOS 15 and getting the 5 or so years of OS support that Apple has been providing. Getting back to communications, if you do buy this for future-proofing, but the 5G bands it comes with aren't deployed widely in the area, you can use Smart Data Mode built in, which reverts to 4G LTE when the 5G signal's too weak, saving you precious battery life. With the A15 Bionic, you're getting more processing power for those cameras and video in day-to-day use. This includes Smart HDR4 and Deep Fusion. Apple made it a point to call out their skin tone mapping and processing, so I pitted it against Google's new Real Tone technology, which focuses on skin tone processing as well. In these photos against the pricier Pixel 6 Pro, the skin tones from the iPhone SE look more natural compared to the 6 Pro, which produced very saturated images. But Real Tone is new, and Google is in its tweaking phase of the technology, while Deep Fusion has been around since 2019, first introduced in the iPhone 11, and of course, Smart HDR is on its 4th generation. And the iPhone SE, despite not having a second camera to help with depth mapping, has algorithms introduced with the last gen device and the A13 chip, which handle that mapping. And its edge detection is fantastic. Portrait photos were really executed on the rear and on the front 7-megapixel selfie shooter, as evidenced by how gloriously it cut out my beard. Bask in the ambiance. But it only works on humans despite how majestic my dog wanted to look with a blurred background. When you try to take a portrait mode photo of your dog, you'll get a message on screen which states that no human is detected. But you know what is detected by this camera and its ISP support? Live text. With it, you can take pictures of signs and other things with text, and the iPhone SE will translate them into copy and pastable text. And it works really well. Aside from not supporting animals in portrait, you also won't get a night shot mode. On the rear camera, you will get 4K 60 video and slow-mo at 240 frames per second. In my daily use outside of the camera, the other thing the A15 Bionic enabled was solid gaming. I broke out my Backbone controller and played some titles, as well as just using the phone itself minus the controller, and was not disappointed at any juncture. There was no lag, and despite the lack of a full HD screen, graphics looked really good. The gaming experience didn't feel like it was missing anything or compromised aside from any preferences for screen size. And audio from the stereo speakers, another great addition to a phone at this price point, some don't have it, some at even greater price points don't, was, well, the speakers were loud. They were quite loud while gaming, as well as while listening to Apple Music. I doubt anyone is going to be playing esports level gaming, but if you get into some time wasters, this phone has more than enough horsepower to ensure that the experience is fluid and fun without hitting the battery too hard. And oh, by the way, on the esports thing, yeah, the A15 processor is more than capable of handling anything that could throw at it. It's the screen size. Ultimately, what this comes down to is cost and preference. You don't get multiple cameras on the back or full HD or facial recognition, but what you do get is a very capable camera, arguably the most powerful processor on a smartphone, 5G support, and years of software support at this price point where other phones may get 1 year, maybe 2, 3. I would spend the extra $50 though and go with the 128 gigabyte model unless you've never filled up your previous 64 gigabyte iPhone and need to delete things just to update the operating system when a new OS was released. You know what? I love when I get to review these smaller phones and they don't suck. They don't feel like I'm making too many trade-offs to make the experience enjoyable. And that's the iPhone SE for me. I've said it before that I like big phones and I cannot lie, but Apple proves that big things can come in small packages and you don't have to sacrifice speed or overall quality and value to get that smaller price and package. Right now, the iPhone SE 2022 is available in Midnight, the Starlight colorway I have here, and Product Red in 64, 128, and 256 gigabyte options, starting at $429. But frankly, if you're going to spend the amount to get the 256 gigabyte model, I'd take a hard look at the iPhone 12 mini or 13 mini. And that is the iPhone SE 2020 3rd gen. I'm Tshaka Armstrong here with you on iMore. By the way, this is my first video here, so whatever you got, comments, constructive criticism, go ahead and leave that in the comments below. I'll get to those comments. I don't take it lightly that you spent your time here watching with us. I'll catch you on the next video.